Every week, somebody sits down at a closing table, signs a stack of papers they never really read, and hands over the biggest check of their life. And somewhere in that stack are a few small clauses that just quietly cost them thousands of dollars. Here's the part nobody tells you. The house is almost never the trap. The paperwork is. For 20 years, I worked inside residential real estate in closings, title, and escrow. I am not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice. I am just the person who watched how these deals really go and saw good people get burned by a few little lines their agent called standard. So let us get straight into the 5 red flags hiding in your home contract, what each one really costs you, and how to protect yourself. And stay to the end for a bonus one that is not even in the contract you sign. Red flag number 1 is the little clause that says you are buying the home as is, usually paired with waiving your inspection contingency. Here is what that really means. When you waive the inspection contingency, you are giving up your right to use anything an inspector finds to renegotiate the price or walk away from the deal. You are agreeing to accept the house exactly as it sits, with every problem, the ones you can see and the ones you cannot. The cracked foundation, the roof at the end of its life, the mold behind the drywall, the electrical panel that has to be replaced, all of it becomes your bill the day after you close. And in a hot market, agents will push you to waive it so your offer looks cleaner to the seller. I understand that pressure. But understand what you are trading. You can still pay for an inspection, you just cannot do anything with what it tells you. So here is how you protect yourself. If you feel you have to waive it to win, at least get a pre-offer inspection or a walk and talk with an inspector before you write the offer, so you are waiving with your eyes open instead of blind. Red flag number 2 is waiving the appraisal contingency, and this one comes straight out of your pocket in cash. The appraisal contingency protects you if the home appraises for less than you agreed to pay. When you waive it, you are promising to buy the house at your full offer price no matter what it appraises for. Here is why that matters. Your lender will only loan against the appraised value, not against your offer. So let us say you offer $500,000 and the appraisal comes back at $450,000. That $50,000 gap does not disappear. You have to bring it to closing in cash, on top of your down payment. I have watched deals fall apart at the closing table over exactly this, because the buyer did not have another $50,000 sitting around. So here is the protection. Instead of fully waiving the appraisal contingency, ask for appraisal gap coverage with a cap. That means you agree to cover the gap, but only up to a number you can actually afford, say $10,000 or $15,000. And above that, you keep the right to renegotiate or walk away. It still makes your offer strong, without betting cash you do not have. Red flag number 3 is waiving the financing contingency, sometimes called the mortgage contingency. This is the clause that protects your deposit if your loan falls through. And think about that for a second. Even buyers with great credit can have a loan fall apart at the last minute. The lender rechecks your job, you open a new credit card, the appraisal comes in low, the underwriter changes their mind. If you have waived your financing contingency and the loan dies, the seller gets to keep your earnest money, and depending on your contract, you could be on the hook for even more. So only consider waiving this if you have a rock-solid, fully underwritten pre-approval, not just a pre-qualification, and enough cash in reserve to survive a surprise. When in doubt, keep it. It is one of the most important safety nets in the entire contract. Red flag number 4 is a phrase most buyers skim right past, and it usually reads something like this, that your earnest money will be held as liquidated damages. Here is what that clause actually does. If you default, meaning you back out for a reason that is not protected by one of your contingencies, the seller gets to keep your entire earnest money deposit, and they do not have to prove they lost a single dollar. That is what liquidated damages means. The deposit is the penalty, decided in advance. And this is exactly why waiving all of your contingencies is so dangerous. Because your contingencies are the only reasons you can walk away and still get that money back. Now, the amount is not unlimited. Different states cap it. In California, up to about 3% of the purchase price is generally treated as reasonable for a home. In Washington, state law caps it at 5%. But do the math on that. On a $400,000 home, that is $12,000 to $20,000 you could lose just by changing your mind at the wrong time. So before you sign, know exactly how much your deposit is, and remember that your contingencies are what protect it. Red flag number 5 is the one I want you to watch for most closely, especially if you are buying new construction, and it is the mandatory arbitration clause. This is a clause where you agree, in advance, that if something goes wrong, you will not take the builder or the seller to court. Instead, you are forced into private arbitration. Binding arbitration is now almost standard in the new home industry, and here is why builders love it. When you sign it, you are giving up your constitutional right to a jury trial. So if your brand new home turns out to have serious defects, you cannot stand in front of a jury of your neighbors. You are in a private process, often on terms the builder's lawyers wrote, and good arbitrators can charge fees in the 5 figures a day, which quietly favors the side with the deeper pockets. Now here is the good news. These clauses get looked at hard by courts, and they can be thrown out if they are vague or unfair, or if the builder skipped a legal requirement. But you should never sign one blind. So here is your protection. If you see an arbitration clause, especially in a builder contract, have a real estate attorney read it before you sign. This is the one place I will always tell you to spend a few $100s on a lawyer, because it can save you from losing tens of thousands of dollars with no way to fight back. And now the bonus red flag I promised, and this one is my world, because it is not in the contract you sign at all. It is in a document called the title commitment, and specifically a section called Schedule B. Your purchase contract points you to this document, but almost nobody reads it. Schedule B is the list of everything your title insurance will not cover, and that list can include easements, where someone else has a legal right to use part of your land, like a shared driveway or a utility company's access. It can include old liens that were never cleared, encroachments where a neighbor's fence sits on your property, even mineral rights that belong to someone else. I once watched a buyer close on a beautiful property and only afterward learned that the neighbor had a recorded right to drive across their backyard. Here is the protection, and it is all about timing. You get a window during your due diligence to review the title commitment, and that window is when you have the most leverage. If you see something on Schedule B you do not like, that is the moment to make the seller clear it up before you close, not after. Once you sign, that leverage is gone. So let us bring it home. 5 clauses hiding in plain sight. The as-is waiver that hands you every hidden defect. The appraisal waiver that can cost you cash at the table. The financing waiver that can cost you your deposit. The liquidated damages line that decides how much you lose if you walk. And the arbitration clause that can quietly take away your right to fight. Plus the Schedule B exceptions in a document you were never told to read. None of this means you should be afraid to buy a home. It means you should never sign anything in that stack without knowing what it does. Read every contingency before you waive it, because each one is a door out of the deal that you already paid for. Ask for a cap instead of a full waiver whenever you can. And when a single clause could cost you tens of thousands of dollars, spend the few hundred on an attorney to read it. Because at the end of the day, the trap is almost never the house. The trap is the paperwork. If this helped you see your contract a little more clearly, subscribe, because I will keep showing you what your agent and the fine print will not. I will see you next time.